stage to stick your hand up. All right, guys. Questions are welcome in this sort of
Questions
time.
are encouraged.
Yeah. And get as much out of the night as you can. I'll be a bit in and out, just to make sure the training gets going. But yeah, this is Matt and Dave from Scotland. Over to you guys.
Okay, so first of all, hands up who was here last year, the presentation that we did in about half. So when we're thinking about what we're going to present tonight, there's a few different approaches we can take. We can show some videos about maybe what the college sport is about, maybe sort of showing the level and the experience that goes with that, maybe the crowds and trying to get the kids pumped up about it all. We could show you some information which might help the parents. They tend to want to know a little bit more detail about exactly what it's about, the academic side of things. The kids may not be too excited about that. So we've got a few little videos which we'd like to show. Maybe get a little bit of a sense for it. And then we'll give you a little bit of information about the structure of college sport and sort of how it works. But then largely it'd be nice if we can sort of just have it a little bit interactive and you guys can ask some questions and from that we can sort of just talk around and hopefully give you some information which can sort of fill the gaps in your current knowledge base about the whole thing. Second question, what do the kids that you guys have at Year 10, hands up? 10? Year 11? Year 12? Okay. So that's generally, I know sort of Year 10 seems a little bit early to be thinking about college given it's essentially 3 years away, but it's kind of the perfect time to just start getting your head around what it's all about. There are some academic rules which we will let you know about, and they start from as early as years 9, and it's around subject selection. So having awareness around college and what needs to be done is sort of not too early to start with that. Around the recruiting part of college, which is sort of trying to get your son or daughter, get their interest from coaches, that can start as early as years 11. Sort of depends on if you're a male or female, as the women tend to start a little bit earlier. But definitely years 10 through to 12 in the right areas to be sort of starting to look at college. But what I'll do, I'll just show a couple of videos, sort of try and create a little bit of flavour, see what it's all about.
Every once in a while, it's good to take a look inside. A good, hard look. So go ahead. Peel back the shell and look at your heart. What do you see? Look inside that body of yours. Do you feel its strength? Trust me, it's there. It's hidden behind fear, hesitation, the walls which others erect around you. Trust me, it is right there. You need to let it out. Push yourself just a little bit more. Here's the thing. What makes you so great? Just look at your competition. You see the fire that burns in their eyes? You're not the only one with passion. I mean, we're all here to win it. What will you do every day to ensure success? Because sure, you'll fail, you'll fall, you'll come within an inch of your life, and you'll try it. I know you will. You'll become the best there is. And it's because of them. You see this man, this woman, what about you? Love her. And with you, they got your back. They lead you forward. They catch you and lift you and travel with you to the top. The summit, the very pinnacle of sport. You see it? It might seem far off now, too steep to climb. Take a look inside. Take a good, hard look in their eyes, in 17-piece ensemble. You're part of something bigger than yourself. It's bigger than her and him. What you have now is stronger and more powerful and blazing with a greater passion than any single heart could muster. Today is your day. All of it. Look inside the University of Miami and you will see your place. You are a hurricane today. Hurricane forever.
So there's a couple of things to take note from that. Obviously, it's not just volleyball. There's about 22 different sports. Some are bigger than the others. And it's a big business. And it's not only big business in the sense of money and everything that goes with that, but it's big business in as far as sport is massive over there. I know we've got our AFL over here and rugby league, and they're almost as big as it gets over here, but sport over there is at a whole other level. And as part of that video, something that I find quite relevant is when they say you're part of something bigger than yourself now, and that's essentially what it is. Like college sport is, there's an identity in it. There's an identity for the people that go to the college, whether or not they're an athlete. There's an identity around if you went to that college. You have football games where 100,000 people turn up, and they're not all students and current athletes. It's people who live in the area. It's people who maybe went to that college, and then there's a real sort of community around it. So college sport, whether you're playing football, volleyball, or whatever, it's almost this privilege, and you're part of an institution and something which is bigger than just the individual, and it's quite different to anything we've probably experienced over here. And from that comes everything that comes with it. It comes from having sport on TV, whether it be volleyball or football or basketball or anything else. It goes with the coverage that comes with it and the prestige. So yeah, it really is something quite special. Next thing, I just want to share a couple of extra videos. The first one is just going to be a bit of men's volleyball, and it is highlights from BYU, and this is probably the pinnacle of men's volleyball. So it's a good level.
The number one. I think the number one.
They're currently number one, and it's good to see exactly how good it is. But in saying that, don't get frightened off if you think, oh God, I'm not that good, because there's opportunities across the board.
Number 10.
UCLA escaped BYU with a 17-15 win. But 10 minutes in an official protest later, a call was overturned, and UCLA went on to win the match 20-18. So it was BYU's turn to protest, and the conference ruled at the end of the game to be replayed from a 16-16 score before Saturday night's match. The Cougars went on to pick up the rival win 18-16.
Number 6. Number 5.
This is fourth swing in the first set, 2 kills for him. A middle mark by Boutique, having a set for the ages. In what will likely be his final home match, Lucy has delivered one of the most incredible performances you've seen here.
Number 4.
Here's Doug Astor, who's coming to serve. And Joe Kay's going to finish off the set.
Number 3.
After an eighth, the second of the night. Another one for Taylor. 70 for his career. 3 away from Carlos Moreno. At 73, and guess who's finally Brian Millar. Look out.
Number 2.
You know he wants to finish right now on the Knights.
51-24 on their feet.
Oh, and it's
Another look at their big winner.
and he shows like he's just gonna bomb and then just a nice little cut in the corner. And it's even on the barrel. That's like even that much sweeter.
Number 1.
Gotta stay in system.
Jump flow, short. Sander right there. Back to Sander. Holy cow! 25-24, Sander. 23 kills. Set one again.
And if you're BYU, who do you want serving right now?
So I'm sure you'll get pretty impressive volleyball. It's a high standard, especially for the guys. Like with the guys, there's only 77 colleges that play volleyball in the US. That's compared to over 1,000 for the women. And you compare that for each. There's probably on average less than 100 full scholarships available for the men compared to the women, where you'd be looking at close to 10,000. So there's a significant difference between the two. And it's a little bit unfortunate for the men, but I guess the reason behind that is that there's this thing called Title IX, and what Title IX is it means for every male scholarship, there needs to be an equal number of female scholarships. And it got introduced maybe 30 years ago, and you can imagine a college football team might have 100 players in there, and a significant number of scholarships, and that needs to get evened out across the different women's sports, such that there's a one-to-one relationship. So volleyball is big for women's sport, and unfortunately for the men, there's not a whole heap of money in it.
Well, I think it's a developing sport. So every year there'll be another 4 or 5 programs that get introduced along the way. That they call them developing sports. And I think sand volleyball or beach volleyball is the one for the girls at the moment. So it's a developing sport. So I think as the years go on, there'll be certainly more opportunities for the guys.
And talking across the different divisions, we've got a little bit of a roadmap here of the different divisions which are available over. So what you've got the highest level of competition across all the different sports is in the NCAA. You've got Division 1, you've got Division 2 and Division 3. Now Division 1 is the highest, typically. It's where you've got the biggest football programs, you've got the biggest basketball programs. There's more sporting programs across the different range of sports available in those Division 1s compared to Division 2. In saying that, it's not necessarily a linear relationship where the best Div 2 team is going to be a little bit behind the worst Div 1. It doesn't quite work like that. You might have the top 20 Div 2 teams will be able to compete with the top 50 Div 1 teams. But the thing is, Div 1 just has a lot more depth. So the 300th ranked Div 1 program might be in and around maybe as good as maybe the 50th Div 2 ranked school. So there's less depth in Div 2 and there's more depth in Div 1. For Division 3, they don't offer any athletic scholarship money. So again, around this notion of college sport, we love our sport, we like to do well. So it is with Division 3 colleges. They don't have any money to throw at students athletically, but they want to do well and they want to have good teams. So they leverage off their, you're allowed to award academic scholarship money. So maybe if maybe you're not good enough for Div 1 or Div 2, or maybe a Div 3 program overall has a better fit for what you want to get out of the experience. If your academics are pretty good, then there's still opportunities for you to go to a Division 3 college and get some scholarship money to contribute to your financial needs. There's also NAIA, which is similar to the NCAA. It's just that they typically have smaller colleges, maybe with about 1,000 people. They're sort of generally liberal arts colleges, not always, but the level of competition in NAIA is still quite strong. Again, the top NAIA teams would compete with the top Div 1 and Div 2 teams, but the level's probably a little bit similar to your Div 2, where the level of depth isn't quite there when compared to your NCAA Division 1.
There's slightly less academic requirements when it goes into NAIA as well. Based on your SATs. Another reason why we like to try and get everyone up the scratch straight away with their academics. So primarily we want to try and make sure everyone's right for Division 1, but if they're not, there's also avenues to go down NAIA and junior college as well. Junior college and both NAIA and junior colleges, you can transfer to Division 1 after 2 years. And that's been an option for a lot of people, especially there's quite a number of volleyball players that go to junior college, then transfer on. Not so much on probably academic, it's a bit of both. It's probably physically getting themselves up to scratch. They spend 2 years in junior college, then transfer over, and sometimes it's academic as well. So yeah, there's definitely some few options there.
So typically we see the junior college as a little bit of a stepping stone for people, whether it be academically, because maybe they haven't chosen the right subject selections between years 9 and 12, or whether maybe physically they're not quite at the level. They get to go over there, compete at what's still a very good level, and then they're able to sort of transfer to a higher program. If you just, that's right. Go back one. So just to give you a little bit of money, a bit of a feel for where the money comes from. So roughly 126,000 student athletes compete across, that's just NCAA. When you add in your NAIA athletes, you're probably looking at about 200,000. You share that amongst roughly $2-3 billion, which either gets provided by the schools or it's revenue that's created by some of the other sports, whether it be football, basketball or other. On average, students get $10,000 to $15,000 in athletic scholarship money. But largely, a lot of the money that gets generated comes from college football programs, college basketball programs. They just had March Madness on, which is the annual college basketball final series, and it gets streamed across the world. ESPN big dollars in TV rights. So you get a lot of revenue that comes not only to individual colleges but to the NCAA, and then that sort of filters down not only to the individual colleges but across those various sports. There's the bottom video which we used to.
So probably someone that everyone's quite familiar with here is Hannah Wright. We just did for recruitment. That finished up about a month ago. So she got into the Louisiana team. I thought it'd be a good option to show everybody, I guess, what happens in behind the scenes with the recruiting, just all the different steps. So probably the first thing is I went and sat down with Hannah and her parents and pretty much went through this same discussion I'm having now. The most important thing to note is that your kid's not the only person going for that scholarship at the school. So what we need to try and do is package up everything, the academics, the sporting, have everything there, so when a coach comes to me or to Matt and says, we need a certain position, certain type of player, we can go, yep, we've got it all here. If they say to me, what about academics and other academically, if I don't have that information there and ready, they'll just go on to the next kid, because as I said before, there will be 30 kids that are as good as your kid looking to get that one scholarship as well. So it's really important that we package everything up together. So we created the website. I'm not really sure if anybody has had a look at the website, but I guess it kind of works a little bit like a Facebook page. We will have a sporting page, a school page, a personal page, photos and videos. So in this section here, just try to get as many stats down as we could with Hannah. We have a certain template that everyone will follow. Sporting achievements, just all the different stats up the top, and then down the bottom, any documentation. Hannah didn't put any documentation on sporting stuff, but we were hoping that her representation would probably get her over the line. School-wise, down the bottom, that comes up. Just all of their grades from year 9 to 12. So a coach can go on, they've got their own profiles on the website, so they can also go on and have a look. They can see all of her SAT scores, they can see it from year 9 to 12, and her eligibility charts at her schools. There'll be a little personal section, something that we help all the kids do up, just a little bit about themselves, photos and video sections. So from there, Matt and I will pick out the best lot of information, which will go into a campaign. So a campaign, will look like this. I'll sort of just scroll down the page, it's quite hard to get it all into one shot. But so from her resume, we picked together probably the best group of information, all the way down to the video. That goes out to every single coach in America. From there, there's stats. So we can see exactly which coaches are looking at her profiles, but probably something that I didn't realise at the start when we were doing these campaigns, and it's actually been one of our best promoting tools, is that we can see on the left-hand side, you can see how many times a coach is looking at it. So 16, and they don't know that. They don't know that we can see those things unless they're probably fairly, I don't think so. I've had coaches looking at a tennis player over 100 times, and sort of I'll be a bit worried. Coach looking at a tennis player for 100 times. Obviously pretty interesting. But the idea now that I had was that we could try and put a little bit of pressure on the coaches to make decisions, because they're very good at, they're salesmen, so they're very good at trying to put the pressure back on the parents and the kids. They'll get straight on the phone, they'll pull all the emotional strings about the Australian person they met back in the 70s when they're over here, and try and like really get a feel for you and what you're all about. So I try and stick away from that and just let this go through first, get a few reports. So then I can actually initiate the conversation and go on the front foot and say to this guy, Brett, I can say, listen mate, we've got Utah, Keene, we've got Northern Colorado, so on. So there's actually 225 colleges all the way down for Hannah. her campaign. So I'll generally go through there, and at the start of a campaign, I'll say to Hannah, so what's important to you? What do you want to study? Do you want to go to a school that has 5,000 people? Do you want to go to a school that has 50,000? We try and filter it down. And so from this report, I can pick out the schools through that list and then go and put the pressure back on them to say, okay, this is what we've got. We need to try and get this deal done. What can you guys do? What can you guys offer? Because the first thing they'll always say is how much can the parents afford? And I just try and say, well, no, it's not about that. We've got these schools. What can you give us? So I hope that all makes sense. But yeah, just being right on top of it, front foot forward, pressure on them rather than pressure on us to make decisions. Yeah, especially like now's a really big time. There's a signing period which is April 17 for the fall intake, so fall being August being the start of their academic calendar. April 17 is probably about a 4-week window where they have a signing period, and it just gets chaotic. Coaches are scrambling around and trying to fit into their budgets what they can. I'm finding it's a fairly hectic time. So, but just being able to manage the process like we have been is beneficial. And for someone like Hannah, we got a verbal agreement before the signing period even began. So she now signs in this period with a bit of relief that she's already got a verbal agreement, which is just an email from a coach saying we would like to offer a deal, and then Hannah just has to say I accept on the email. So it's already done before the signing period. So we like to try and get those things set up early. And you can do that, depending on the sports, you can do that I think you can do it from year 12. You can start getting verbal agreements. I've seen kids in year 11 getting signed up by colleges across different sports. So that gives you an idea behind the scenes.
And it does sort of depend on the sport and what level you're at. It's funny how the coaches operate there. Initially, they're after the cream of the crop, so they'll be trying to hunt down the best of the best straight up, and they'll be trying to get them and sign them and offer them whatever they want. And invariably, there's a limited number of those top level, and coaches won't necessarily get them. So when they realise they don't get them, that's when they start scrambling around for the next lot. So it's funny. There's opportunities to sign or to get a verbal agreement as early as year 11, depending on your level. It could be year 12, but even sort of in the 6 months leading up, while the recruitment has started in year 11, there's a scramble around this period of time because they've got their offers out, and some athletes are going to say, no, I'm not going to go with you, I'm going to go over here. So in the few months leading up to when college starts in August, they're still looking to sort of fill their rosters. So there's a time to be recruited over that whole almost 2-year period. And you know what, some people aren't going to get offered anything as early as year 11 or even early year 12, and maybe they're at that sort of level where they're going to be sort of looking to get something so in that 6 months leading up. But it's there's definitely opportunities across that whole period of time.
Can it start right from the beginning? Does she come to you and then to when she has got the scholarship? How long does that take?
Well, she probably came to us a little bit late. We had her resume up and running probably around sort of September last year, which typically is quite late. So from the period where we started trying to recruit her when she had a verbal agreement, we're probably looking at sort of 4 or 5 months. And ideally, I would have liked to have had that sort of early year 12, just to give yourself the best chance to almost target that November early signing period. But she sort of came a little bit too late for that. So by the time she was getting coaches were looking at her resume in sort of October, they probably had some offers out the table for that early signing period. So she was probably put on the back burner a little bit until sort of December, January, when coaches we're starting to look again for this next signing period.
So Matt just said early signing period. So I said signing period in April, then there's an early signing period in November. So
Which usually lasts for a week or two, no more. But it's funny, it's based on these signing periods, that there are definite times where coaches are more active in their recruiting and when they maybe just sort of hold off a little bit because maybe they've got a few little offers out and on the table, and invariably when they don't all come through, they need to ramp it up again for the next phase.
that's actually Canada's stadium actually playing. So that's Louisiana Tech's volleyball complex. So you get on to about 8,000 people. And it's in a really nice conference. And in Conference USA, there's some really good schools in there. So I'm just really quite happy that that one came about. And I think it's something that probably needs to get on the radar more for the volleyball players over here. I think there are a lot of options. And it definitely is a pathway, but probably something that hasn't been looked into enough. But there definitely is a fair pathway for good volleyballers.
Now, just on the scholarship part of this, and we're talking about Hannah, so I'll talk about the women. In Division 1, they get a full scholarship. That's kind of part of the rules. Whereas the men, they don't necessarily get a full scholarship. Across some of the other divisions, so you've got Division 2, you've got NAIA, they will typically get partial scholarships. And what the coach will have, he'll have himself a budget of maybe sort of eight scholarships that he can give out, and he'll have a squad of maybe 12, 15, 20 players. So he needs to decide how he's going to distribute that money. And in some coaches will have a blanket rule of, you know what, maybe I give everybody 40%, or maybe I give our best players a full scholarship, and maybe some of the other ones will just get some textbooks or something. So it it depends on the college, it depends on your level, and that applies to the Division 2 and the NAIA. And I guess that also applies to the guys across the Division 1 and 2, where there's a limited number of scholarships, and the coach has to make a decision as to how he wants to allocate that. So for example, I was having a chat with a coach, and he said, you know what, I'm allowed 4.5 scholarships for my whole team. I'm only going to award one full scholarship to an incoming freshman. That's all I'm going to do. So he's probably going to get maybe 3 or 4 incoming freshmen coming, and he's just going to pick one which he's going to award a full scholarship to. Makes it a little bit tough for the others, but it's the nature of the beast. So I know we spoke about there being close to 10,000 scholarships maybe for the women, maybe less than 100 for the men. Just on the men's side of things, I think there's probably about 20 Division 1 colleges that play volleyball. There's about 13 Division 2 colleges that play volleyball. And they actually play all as part of one competition. So Division 2, Division 1, they play against each other, and it's quite strong. You've also got 50 Division 3 colleges where, again, it's quite strong, and they like to do well, but they're not allowed to offer any sporting scholarship money. But if your grades are good, then they'll try and leverage off that, and the coach will try and dip into the college's academic funds and contribute to your financial needs. Any questions on that? Questions? I'll probably just give you a whole bunch of information. Yes.
When you're talking about the financial side, that would be quite interesting to a lot of parents, I think.
Yep.
So you're saying you might give out the sporting scholarship, they might give out, like say, what are we talking? The full cost of going to college might be what, 30,000 for the year or something like that. If you're looking at 20 to 30,000, so you're saying that the sports people might give you what, 10,000, then you've got to do your SAT and try and do your academic side, get something from that. Is that sort of how it works?
Sort of yes and no. So you guys don't really need to worry about how to apply for academic compared to how to apply for sporting scholarship. The coaches across that he knows he's got this budget for his sporting scholarship, he knows there's this budget for academic, he would just have a look at what your grades are and say, you know what, that's good enough for me to maybe get the majority of your funding from the academic pot, which means I can sort of maybe give you a little bit of sporting, and together you get a full scholarship. The coach will be across that and how to sort of allocate that. You obviously, irrespective of whether you think you can get academic scholarship money or not, you will still need to provide academic transcripts, SAT results, grade point averages, and you need to do that just to satisfy the academic requirements, just to play college sport, irrespective of academic scholarship money. But from that set of information, the coach is able to make a determination of whether you might be eligible for some academic money.
And so you've got that side, and then as a parent, so you look at, that's not going to include accommodation, or would that include accommodation? Then you've got the health side of it, like what other costs do you have to bear in mind if your child's
So that probably goes into the contracts. You can sort of, schools, I just had one just recently, I was asking the same sort of questions, and generally, whatever so this kid, the school was costing, if you didn't have any scholarship, I think it was going to cost about $35,000, and we got it down to about $6,000, and that included accommodation, including health insurance and a meal plan, so all food. So I guess probably another thing which I'm not sure we've given you guys, but cost of living, just trying to work out what is that worth to you guys, and whenever you're looking at your budgets for your kids going to school, there's always to try and have to think about what it would cost over here for your kids to be at university, to keep on playing volleyball, and try and put that into your budget, because we like to try and use that when we're going to try and sort out the actual scholarship. So for this parent, it was really important that they got actually health insurance was the number one, and then accommodation. And so I made sure that contract was clear on 100% on both those two. And they weren't really sure about the food, and I said, we'll take a meal plan for the first year, just because you're going to have a lot of pressures and your kid probably doesn't know how to cook very well, so take a meal plan and learn how to cook throughout the first year. So that's what they did on that one. So yeah, generally speaking, health, accommodation and food will be included. Yeah. And yeah, they'll always have, if you don't get 100, they'll let you know what the fee is. So out of pocket, that's probably a couple of words that we use is what is out of pocket. We want to know the finer details, the attention to detail, probably the key for all parents.
So that detail comes with an offer?
Yeah, well, even before you get that verbal, it's good to know the devil is in the details. So it's always, it's key to make sure there's a list of things that we go through with the coaches, just to make sure, because there's probably a lot of stuff parents don't think about, so we always try and make sure there's a few, just from experience of all the different kids that we've dealt with, a few kids have gone over there and probably had to spend an extra $500 on stuff that we didn't actually think about. So along the way, we've actually learned a fair bit, so we can tick off all those little boxes.
I gather in relation to the male scholarships, if there's 100 available, those 100 are available to anywhere in the world, not just Australia. So, on average, how many of them, if you're talking male scholarships, how many of them end up coming to Australia? One a year, 5 a year, none a year, one every 5 years?
Well, it's just a comparison of if the 5 Aussies go for one each year, and 100 Puerto Ricans go for them, but 5 Aussies are better, all the 5 Aussies will get it over the Puerto Ricans.
Yeah, probably more looking into internationals. Yeah, there'll be people from Europe, South America, Puerto Ricans will be pretty.
So there's no real fixed rule around it. It just comes down to, all right, the coach sees this kid, whether they're from the US, Australia, or somewhere else. Are they going to be good for my squad? And are they going to be the best option for my squad from the available set that I have? That's how they make their decisions.
Yeah, there's so much that goes in behind. Sometimes you think, there's not a lot of scholarships here, but every now they have this thing called, there's in-state tuition and out-of-state tuition. So in-state tuition means that, well, I'll put it into Australian context, that we live in Melbourne, we go to University of Melbourne, it might cost us $6,000. If we want to go to University of Sydney out of state, it would cost us $30,000. But somehow there's been all these little reciprocal things between, if you went to school in Queensland, you can go to a school in South Carolina. We didn't even know this, we only just found it out recently, and you can get in-state tuition. So then that would cut out, it just cuts out all these massive fees that you're saving another $24,000 there. And then you can say that to the colleges and they go, well, we can give 150% scholarship for that. So I always try to find out the schools that have reciprocal, and it takes a long time to work out that sort of stuff.
And sometimes colleges will just waive the out-of-state fees, such that somebody coming early has to pay the in-state. And when I say they only have to pay, that's right. The cost of your tuition is the in-state, so the total value of the scholarship or the cost could be $20,000 as opposed to $35,000, and then if they're awarding you a 50% scholarship, well, it's 50% of 20. So they and it's still a little bit of horses for courses. Some colleges will do that, others won't. You even have a look at this notion of a full ride scholarship, which includes everything, and Division 1 women's volleyball players, they get everything paid for. But you go to a California college, and some of them will say, okay, everything's paid for. Others will say, well, everything but the out-of-state tuition is paid for. So I'm getting a full scholarship, but I still have to pay the difference between the in-state and the out-of-state, which could be $10,000. So there's sort of like little rules for each individual university. And there's general rules, but there are some variations.
So what's the Canada like? Is that easier than...
I think there's a chat. This is a perfect segue. Basically, you come. Yeah.
Actually, I'd like to give you a quick question of what was in America. If an applicant for girls volleyball, is there an age that the American colleges might think they're getting a little bit old for scholarship?
Yes.
What is that age?
But there's no fixed, no simple answer.
There's an eligibility centre that says you have to start competition. So if our girls finish in December, girls and boys finish in December, they can compete they can compete in Australia up until August. If they wanted to go in January, which is their spring, they're not allowed to compete from August to January. And you must go within 1 year of finishing school. Geez, I was a few things there, wasn't it?
All right, so I reckon.
Do you reckon you can explain that better?
Maybe.
Well, an unofficial estimate.
Well, it's not really an age. It's pretty much you need to be going to uni within a year of finishing high school, whether that's uni here in Australia, and then maybe after a year of studying, you can transfer over. But you could study here for maybe 2 or 3 years and transfer over. But obviously, the longer you stay here, the less time you can stay over there.
There's athletic eligibility, meaning 4 years, so you might be chipping away at your eligibility athletically. So if you stay over here for a year, it depends on what the eligibility centre will rule, because they are very random with how they rule things. It could mean that you got 4 years, it could mean you got 3 years, but we just like to make sure that you're in that.
So the more time passes after our secondary college year, the more difficult it may become.
Yeah. Essentially, your clock starts ticking once you enrol in university, given you enrolled within 1 year.
I don't know if you can answer this, but can a student take a gap year after our BCE?
Yes.
So gap years.
Yeah, and it's funny, for different sports, tennis, you can only have a gap 6 months before you have to be enrolled in university. But for the majority of the other sports, and I believe that volleyball included, it's 1 year you're allowed to take off. And then you can look to either go over there. The challenging thing is, because for the volleyball season for the women's is in between August and the end of the year. So not many coaches will want to take you on in January. They'll be looking to start you in the following August, which means you have a gap year and a half, and then you get penalised because it's been 6 months after that year. So there's plenty of rules around it. But in short, yeah, once you start enrolling, your time starts ticking away. Yeah.
Since the volleyball season is from August to the end of the year.
Yeah, till about December. The finals are in early December, late November. Yeah. So I think.
What do they do if they're not playing volleyball?
They still play some volleyball tournaments. It's just not sanctioned NCAA competition. They might just have invitational tournaments. The University of Oregon women's volleyball team toured Australia. They played 3 games out here. That was a couple of weeks ago. So they do things like that.
It's generally invitational. I did tennis, and our seasons in January to April, and then in the other. So yeah, so that's your spring from January through to April, and in the fall we play invitational. So you're just sort of travelling around America. Yeah, getting prepared for what is the real deal, being the official section season, because that's when the school gets ranked, and that's when they get all their little prizes and glory of it all. So it's important that they get their kids up and running and ready for the season. If they want to get ranked, that's a big priority. If they don't get ranked, coaches get sacked.
Canada.
Yeah, let's talk Canada. Yeah, so my name's Linford, for those who don't know me. I went to Canada to play college, would have been in 2011 and 12. I went for a full school year from September to April. And so as I kind of tell you about the process that I went through, if anyone has any questions, just shout out. But basically, I left for Canada in, I think, September of 2011, off the top of my head. So about 9 or 10 months before that, so the December before. So early in that year, I'd been thinking about whether I wanted to go to college, because I was going to university here in Melbourne, and I was thinking that I wanted to take the next level to go and travel overseas and play volleyball, which would be good. So it basically started off, first I put together some film or some videotape for me. So I put together a highlights video, and then basically after that, I went on so how it works in Canada is there's 2 divisions. There's Division 1, which is usually bigger universities, which is called the CIS, and Division 2, which are generally small schools. I went to a Division 2 school, but basically I cut together a film and went on the Canadian Collegiate National Association website. I can't remember the abbreviation, but basically I went and found out all the universities that play volleyball in Canada. Went to their athletic website department and found out who the head coach was, copied their email address and sent everyone a copy of my highlights video. So I don't remember exactly, but I would have sent my highlights video to about 40 or 50 coaches. I got no's from about 5 coaches. I got nothing from about another 33 coaches. And 1 coach said yes in the end, and another coach was thinking maybe. So that was just my experience. It's kind of different from everyone else, but from the time when I sent my actual video to first hearing a response from the school I ended up going to, it was probably about 6 weeks, so I didn't hear anything, and then he kind of sent an email back saying, hey, are you still interested in coming to Canada? And then after that, there was a lot of emailing back and forth about trying to figure things out. Canada's, I don't know, these guys know America much more than me, but Canada's different from America in that in a scholarship for Canada, they can't actually give you money for living expenses. So they can't cover your rent and they can't cover your food. And in terms of flights over there, legally, within the sporting rules, they can't pay for your flights over there, but they can kind of fudge it so they can pay for your flights if you're good enough. So they can't on the book say that they're going to pay for your flights, but in the past, I know they have done that for certain international people. But you can't necessarily bank on that. So they can't cover your accommodation and they can't cover your food, which makes it a little bit more expensive. But on the other side, tuition in Canada is generally cheaper than America. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, how much does it cost for a United States kid to go to school for a year? Just general.
30. What does tuition?
Just tuition.
Anywhere between 10 and 30.
Yeah, and like in Canada, for the smaller schools, it's kind of mirrors Australia's price a bit more. So maybe like only, if you go to a big university, maybe 5 or 6 grand for a year. But like their number varies, it varies in Canada a lot in terms of how much it actually costs. So that's that. And yeah, so the experience for me was incredible. It's a really, really scary thing because you sit behind the computer, emailing your coach every couple of days to try and figure out stuff, and then when you're actually getting on a plane to go over and you land in Canada and you realise that you don't know anyone, you don't know anyone who plays on your team, you don't know who you're going to be living with, you don't know if the coach is going to be a good guy or a bad guy, you don't know if the team is actually going to be good or bad, if the town you're staying in is going to be really, really terrible. But basically, after my first day of school, which was again really, really scary because it's not like going to university here where it's like, oh, you know, what high school did you go to? It's as soon as you open your mouth, they know that you have an accent and they know that you're different, which kind of plays to your favour, but again, it's a little bit of a scary thing. So on the first day, you kind of realise that everyone is really, really nice. And that was, to me, the take-home message that pretty much everyone I met at school and as I travelled in and throughout Canada was just absolutely amazing to me. Most people opt to stay in like living dorms, so staying on campus, but for my situation, I decided to stay with a billet family. So a family in the town took me in, and I stayed with them, and they kind of took care of me. So that worked out. In the end, that worked out cheaper for me because they provided my meals for me, and cost was a really big thing for me, trying to balance and make sure I have enough. Yeah, like I said, it was really, really good because at the start, you're really, really nervous. So like when you get to your first training, and especially because there's guys who've been on that team for a couple of years who all know each other, and you're just kind of a freshman who sounds funny, and they're not really sure, you know, who you are or what you do, but everyone's really, really welcoming. The coach is really, really accommodating at the start, or at least mine was, kind of explaining to me how the league works. And how the league does work is, it depends where in Canada you go, but generally speaking, it's a pretty long season. So we had a 24-match season. We started the season in about the middle of October and played regular season matches all the way through to about the middle of February. But obviously, you take kind of the end of December, you pretty much take the whole of December off because that's exam and Christmas period, so you get 2 weeks off for Christmas. And then if your team does good enough, then towards the end of February, you head to a playoff tournament. Yeah, so what else? So I'm just blurting out stuff randomly here, so if anyone has a question,
Which college or university did you go to, and what were the academic requirements like for you to be accepted?
Yeah, I went to College of the Rockies, which is in British Columbia. So that's, for anyone who knows, that's about 4 hours west of Calgary, about 10 hours east of Vancouver, so towards the western coast of Canada. And in terms of academic entrance requirements, it depends. You have to have a certain amount of units done to get into a course. So if you wanted to do, for example, a science course, you would have to show them that you've done high school biology, high school chemistry. But if you wanted to get into, say, a business or economics course, you'd have to say that you've done business or economics or something in high school. So it's not so much you have to have a certain, so they didn't look at my enter score at all. They just wanted to know if I had a certain amount, like what I'd done in high school and if that matches up to if this course leads on. So the entrance requirements academically aren't necessarily there, but once you're there, you have to keep grades to but one thing, keep your scholarship and stay on the team. So just like in America, so for us, we had a rookie on our team who, after first semester, so first semester runs from about September to December, he was doing 5 units that semester. He failed, I think, 3 of them, and then at the end of that, the coach said, don't come back, because it was failing his grades. And at the start, you also sign a contract. It's different for every school, but we had to sign a contract to say, we will get our scholarship money if we attain a certain GPA, so have a certain amount of grades. And usually it's generally pretty easy to keep as long as you're not slacking off a bit, and that's generally the case. But they generally do take academics once you're there, keeping your head above water really, really seriously. So at kind of times throughout the season where guys kind of dropped off a bit and weren't handing in assignments, the coach would say, right, you can't train 2 nights a week until you catch up with this subject. So I kind of answer that.
How did you go in relation to leaving Australia in September, but the year in Australia hadn't finished yet as far as schooling goes? Did that interfere with your Australian school marks?
Yes, good question. Obviously the Australian semester ends around June or July. So I was about 4 or 5 weeks into my Australian semester before I actually found out that I was going. I found out later than I should have, just because there was a mix-up with getting my study visa, which shouldn't have happened, so I should have known a bit earlier. But basically, I was doing a 3-year degree here in Melbourne. So after I found out I was going, I just deferred for a year, so I took a gap year off. And then when I got back to Australia in April, I just came back to school in June, where I left off the year before. If that kind of makes sense.
So you travelled for the year, effectively was a gap year, it didn't account.
Yeah,
what you did in Canada didn't account to anything of your course in Australia.
Yeah, that's true.
What if you had stayed in Canada more than a year?
Yeah.
Would you have ended up with a degree of what you were studying in Australia?
For my course, no. And I think that's really a thing that depends on the exact institution and what course you're doing and how that matches up. Because it's really, really, it's not different how they do it, but with whatever course you do, like I was doing a course that they don't really have here, which is kinesiology. So it's kind of exercise science, what we call here, but slightly different there. So what I was doing in Melbourne didn't transfer there, but that depends on the college or the university that you choose to go to in Canada and the one you go to in Melbourne. So it's a case-by-case thing. It's not really generically, you can transfer or you can't. It just depends on the situation.
So you probably need to finish it, you either need to start and finish a complete degree in Canada or do the same in Australia.
I wouldn't necessarily say so. I think it just depends on the degree that you do. Yeah, it's really hard for me to say. Like I know at the school that I went to, which was a college, I don't think I could have transferred my credits, but maybe for another course that someone else would have done, they could have. So that's the kind of thing where each school has different prerequisites for the course, and yeah, it just kind of depends on a case by case. Yeah.
You went over Canada due to?
Yeah, Div 2.
How do you compare to the level of volleyball compared to staying in Australia? And was that the main focus, was to go over travel, to go over better experience in actual volleyball as a sport? So probably 2 questions in one here.
It was volleyball at a different level and kind of different volleyball. So I didn't have to rock up to Dandenong every week and play against the same people, so something slightly different. And in terms of the level, one thing you kind of notice is that there's a lot, because they have a college system there's a lot more people who are kind of 17, 18, 19, 20 who still play the game. Whereas here there's really big dropouts after kids leave school, but there it's kind of keeps going. So the level, to compare it, like in our division, there were some probably teams who maybe weren't up to like an under-19 state team level. But then again, there were some really good teams who could have easily been like the best under-23 state team in Australia. So it really does depend on the team and the program. But generally speaking, I found like being able to play college, even though it's second division, is still much better than playing like Division 1 here constantly, or maybe playing honours and not in a full-time starting role if you're younger. That kind of makes sense. And you do there's a lot of matches in the season, which is really good. So we had 7 teams in our conference, including us. So played everyone 4 times. So 2 matches at home, 2 matches away. So it's a really, really cool thing to be able to kind of get on the team bus, drive somewhere, play team Friday night, sleep there in a hotel with the team, and then play the team again Saturday afternoon. And it's also good because there are people who come to watch the match and who are interested. Any other questions? Yeah, and probably the only other thing to mention was, again, so the importance of study that they kind of inflicted on us was pretty obvious from the start in that the coach was like, these are the grades you have to get, you know, you need to keep this to keep your scholarship. And in terms of how much the scholarships were, again, that varies a lot. For me, my scholarship ended up being kind of like they were talking about with the in-state and out-of-state fees. They took my tuition fees from an international student, which works out like 3 times as expensive as a domestic student. So they took me from an international fee-paying student to a Canadian fee student, and then took a little bit more off that. But other guys on the team got more money than me that I know of, and other guys didn't. So no one really kind of talked about how much money they got. But you know, again, it's a thing where if the coach wants you more, then they'll offer you more money. And if they really want you, then they can find ways to kind of give you more money. So my situation was I didn't have a lot of money going over there, so I knew I was going to have to work. And it was a little bit scary at first, thinking I was going to have to work and fit that in with studying volleyball. But the jobs that I ended up doing at my school turned out to be really, really helpful. Like one weekend, I got to tournament manage like an under-16 volleyball tournament, and got paid a couple $100 for that. And random kind of cash in hand jobs came up. So one time, some random photographer who lived about 2 hours out of town was looking for models. So he called the school asking for players. So he came to training, took headshots of everyone, and then they picked the 4 most attractive guys, and I was one of them. So we got to drive out to his ranch, and they paid us like $150 for the day, and they literally just took photos of us all day while we just ate free fruit and stuff. Another one of my jobs, I made a college recruitment video for my college. So I cut together some information and put it in a video. So that was another way that I could do kind of, so I can make a video in my own time when I wasn't studying or playing. And another job I did as well, which was a bit of an odd job, I'd give tours of the college to high school students. So when high school kids in year 11 and year 12 would come to the school and kind of want a tour, it was a student ambassador, which is what they called it. You don't get paid a lot, but you kind of do a couple of tours of the school, and that's a little bit more money to have cash in hand.
And so were you offered more than 1 year and left after a year, or you only offered 1 year?
The school would have been happy to have me back a second year, but I just didn't want to go back. Not because I didn't enjoy it, but more because for me it wasn't the right situation. That I wanted to get my degree sooner rather than later. So if I had stayed in Canada, it would have taken me another about 3 or 4 or 5 years to get that degree, whereas I could come back to Melbourne and do it in 1.5 years. And obviously, if I'm living overseas, less support from my mum, so it would have cost me a little bit more money.
So it was 1 year offer to start with?
Oh, in terms of what I signed? Yeah, so the first year was guaranteed, but the coach liked me enough that he would have said, if you want to come back, come back. I'm not sure if, I haven't spoken to people about whether they've been signed for multi-years. I think it's usually the one where if you go over and the school likes you and is happy with you, then they'll offer you again. But because I was at a Div 2 school, they tend not to sign people for too many years because a lot of the Div 2 schools are bouncing schools to try and go up into Division 1. And the way their transfer system works, it's really helpful academically. So a lot of people, like forget sport, academically would go to a small school like I did for 1 or 2 years and then transfer to a big university to a bachelor's degree. So yeah, before my situation it was just a year, but I didn't sign anything that said it was going to be 2 years.
Did you organise your accommodation for your residential college organisability when you were there?
It happened before, but basically the option was put upon me to stay on dorms, like on campus, or get billeted. He said it's probably better I get billeted because that's generally what international kids do. So I just said I want to get billeted, and then he kind of sent an email to the billeting department of the university, and then they have their way of getting the billet to talk to them. So then he said, this is the name of the family you're going to be staying with for 8 months, and this is the address, and then go on Google Maps and try and look at street view. So yeah, it was organised before. And then there also would have been the option of, I don't know how many schools still do the billet thing. I think it's not as common now, but there's also the option of I know kids who started the year in dorms, and then after that, so they'll stay the first full school year on dorms with campus, and then after that, if I'd have gone back a second year, I would have had enough friends that we probably would have gotten a house, maybe like 5 or 10 minutes away from school, and have like 3 or 4 of us in a house. It works out slightly cheaper, and it's probably more clean to live with people you know than much people you don't know. So it's generally speaking, the kids who have been on the team longer kind of don't really stay on campus because they've been around enough that they get 3 or 4 of their buddies and they just say, hey, let's get a house. It's going to be a little more relaxing having to deal with lots more people in dorms. And what else?
Do you know that SAT test that you do for America? Is that, do you have to do one of those for Canada? Or?
No.
That's not, so they don't look at that whole thing.
Yeah, they didn't ask me for that, and I don't think it's part of the entrance courses.
Probably 5 rules. Sorry.
Do you have to Canada as well?
No, not at the moment. I mean, I guess America's the one thing that we've had experience with. We'll probably stick there just by looking at just listening as well. There's bits and pieces with the structure. There's probably a lot of unknowns with the Canadian system. It seems like each institution has a few different rules and how you apply and what's available where I guess America's probably been set up for a good 40, 50 years longer in the sport, and so there are definitely set things you do with the SAT must be done. All these eligibility centre must be done as well. And I guess it comes from the football programs. The academic thing has just come from the football programs in the sense where they don't want just any kid coming in and just getting a football scholarship, which is what was happening back in the 70s. So they brought in all the Title IX and brought in all these SATs, eligibility centres, and it just gets monitored 24/7 to make sure that they have the right kids coming in. Everything's structured up, all the contracts are there. So you know whether you're going to be there probably for 4 years or the 1 year. You either sign a 1 year or a 4 year at college in America. I signed a 4 years, so I knew I was going to be there dependent on my grade. It was a 2.0 in America, so that was achieving a B- or better, which is in your first year is not easy to do. Doing a lot of sort of broad subjects in your first year.
With the core subjects of America, the NCAA is quite core is English, maths and science.
And social science. Yeah.
But the NAI, you don't have to have as much core. So my child is not science, actually. So there's no way to do NCAA because science is not there.
Well, it sort of depends because the rules are you need minimum 2 years of science and minimum 2 years of social science. Typically, in years 9 and 10, you will do a year in each of science and social science. So while you may not choose to then go and do those in year 11 and 12, you may have somewhat met the requirements in any case. Some people don't because schools still allow a little bit of choice in years 10. But yeah.
Psychology.
That's a social science. Yeah.
What about philosophy? Is that
Oh, no, well, that's an approved subject, but it's not a social science or a science. So it doesn't count to the minimum science and social science requirements, but it does count to you needing minimum 16 over the course of the 4 years.
So yeah, it definitely does help. Yeah, probably the more frustrating subject for athletes over here is HBE. That doesn't count. So yeah, that's probably the most frustrating one.
And business studies, that doesn't count.
HBE and business studies doesn't count. There are elements of science in HBE, but to this point, the eligibility centre never. So NAIA, that could be an option. So NAIA, you just have to make sure that you get an 860 on your SAT exam. So that SAT exam is made up of 3 sections: reading, maths, and writing, and it's like a total of, what is it, 2,400. And average score, probably around about, say, 860.
No, well, so you need 860 out of your maths and reading, which is 1,600.
So, sorry, that's 2 sections. So for Australians, the 2 sections that count are reading and maths. So we've got 1,600. So you need an average score is around about the 860 out of 1,600. And we don't have to worry about the writing section.
Which when you think about it, it's just a bit over 50%. Anything like that, maybe that shouldn't be too challenging, but we like to suggest people take 2 SATs because the format of it is a little bit different where if you answer a question incorrectly, you get deducted marks. So people often, if you're guessing, then you might be disadvantaged because you might lose marks.
So when can and should
we recommend end of year 11 if possible and end of year 12, but obviously it depends around your other year 12 studies and exams and when trying to fit it in best.
Is there a set date? Like a VC exam, does everyone in the world sit at the same time?
Yeah. There's some out in May, June.
When my daughter sat her SAT, she spoke with maths, she did general maths at VCE, but she found the maths component very challenging because it was different type of maths that she wasn't used to.
Oh yeah, I was exactly the same. Although, mind you, I did mine after year 12 in March. So I had 3 months off, so I felt like a bit of a numpty going into this exam because I hadn't thought about anything to do with academics for a few months. So I really struggled. But yeah, it was a little bit different. So that's why, yeah, definitely suggest to get the practice exams. I think there's practice exams on the SAT website, which is collegeboard.org, and you can get up.
And there is one where question a day came to our email address every day.
And you can get old exams for the past 3 years as well. So you can pay $60 and you can get as many exams as you want. You can have a look at the style questions that they've got. So yeah, that's on collegeboard.org.
There is no key tutors then that tutor you.
Yeah, you can get tutors, definitely. There's collegeboard.org, so O-R-G, yeah. Yeah, there will be. Yeah, we'll have pages with all that stuff, recruitment guides. Yeah, and there are people that do the tutoring. There's a lady that does at Maribyrnong College, Maureen Spencer Gardner, she does a bit of tutoring for the SATs. She's pretty big on her academics, so she does a bit of tutoring, so she's a good one.
Got an American question and a Canadian question. On the American, if you go for Div 3 on the academic side of things, I'm assuming that's an easier one to go for, given that there's more spaces available?
Do you mean academically?
Yeah.
Probably one of the best academic schools in America is MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Tech, and that's Div 3. So yeah. Again, probably there's so many schools, there's so many universities over there that there are easy ones and there's hard ones. So, yeah, like you go to MIT, it'd be nails to get in there. Your acceptance rates will be very low to get in there, but then there will be other ones that will probably be a little bit easier. But that's the same across the board. There's just a lot more schools than Div 1.
For Div 3, whereas like if you present yourself to the coach and saying, look, I'm keen to play on your team, the coach doesn't necessarily make the decision as to how much academic money you might get. He might be aware of, right, your results might warrant this much, but the way they determine is by you need to apply to the school, and as part of that application process, they will determine how much financial aid you're eligible for, and then they'll let you know. It's a little bit different from the Div 1 and Div 2, where the coach can essentially make that decision. Like he'll talk to their compliance team and they'll figure out a package to then present to you. But it's a little bit different for the Div 3s where you need to apply to figure it out.
Complicated process.
Well, like it.
Or in the dark.
Yeah, like it. There's there's usually a $50 application fee to apply to almost any college, and you fill out some paperwork, and I'll let you know. But you are a little bit more in the dark because you don't know 100%.
On the Canadian side of things, is male volleyball more popular in Canada than America, or is it the same sort of ratio?
I'd say it's about the same. I didn't notice any difference because most schools that have a guys team have a girls team as well. So the school that I went to, well, every school that we played in our conference, it was the girls played the night match at 6 o'clock, and then straight after that the guys played at 7:45. So there's just as big a following for the girls as the guys. So there wasn't really a difference in numbers. It didn't seem like as big a discrepancy in scholarship. Yeah, and one other thing, just to talk about how college life worked when I was there. So for the team, we trained 4 times a week. So kind of a lot, but not that much. Kind of probably about the same you'd be doing here. Some schools might opt to go 5 times a week, or other schools. What we did when it came to exam time and really heavy study period, we cut down a couple training sessions so kids kind of had more time to study. But generally speaking, you kind of train 3 or 4 times a week, and then on the weekends you play. So how it works is you play a back-to-back match on the weekend, so you play a Friday night match, and then you play the same team again on a Saturday afternoon, and then the next weekend you play again. So you might have a bye the next week, but for a good period of about the middle of October to the end of November, you play every weekend. And like I said, you get December and Christmas off, and then you come back for another 6 or 7 weeks and play every weekend. And then over the Christmas break, what was really cool that I got to do was one of the girls on the girls team was also a half off for Christmas. So her uncle, I think, lived in Vancouver, which was about 10 hours away. So she invited me back to her family's place to go spend Christmas with them. So I got to go spend Christmas with some family who was really welcoming and stuff. So over Christmas I went to Vancouver for about a week and spent Christmas with someone else. And then over New Year's I flew over to Calgary because just after New Year's we had a mid-season exhibition tournament. So because there's such a large break, generally speaking, we play some exhibition matches just after Christmas or New Year's. So I got to go to Vancouver and Calgary, and got to go to the Calgary Zoo and stuff. And also the incident that happened, you get to go into different schools. So like I said, we got to travel to six different schools just in our conference. And I think in Alberta, which is another conference slightly over to the east, I think there's even more schools that you get to travel to. And if you're good enough to play Division 1, which is CIS, then I think the travel becomes even more because you can travel from BC to Alberta to Manitoba, which is slightly more across, and spread out.
How did you travel?
We travelled by bus. So our situation was, our school was our closest away match was about 11 hours by bus. But that's just because we're in the middle of nowhere, because we're a really small town. But every other school that was close to each other was only about 1 or 2 hours from each other. So in Division 2, they generally bus it because everything's pretty close by except for us. But in Division 1, some of the schools that have more money tend to fly. So because they don't want their kids driving like 24 hours across the country, they just fly instead. But that's a school by school situation. Generally speaking, it's not going to be a really huge bus.
Is that the same with America with the bus and the flight?
Yeah, a little bit the same. It obviously depends on what schools are in your conference, the proximity. But yeah, you catch buses and you fly.
You've probably answered this question already. When did you start thinking about creating profiles? Beginning of year 12 or the end of year 11 or early on in year 11?
Probably business life in year 11. Like I guess ultimately we will be, like coaches will get a little bit of exposure to our athletes as soon as they create a profile, and whether if you're a female, maybe there's some more serious recruiting going on in year 11 compared to the males, but it's all about getting people on the radar, and it's probably never too early to do that.
And then keeping coaches updated. Obviously, they're going to have, as I said earlier, I'm going to have a lot of kids going through their email systems and month to month, making sure that you keep coaches updated with what people are doing with the competitions and so forth.
Were there any other questions? I guess there's a couple of things I wanted to have you sort of often remind me of a few things. One thing is, obviously we're in Australia and they're in the US, so the key thing to market yourself and to get yourself recruited is video. And that getting video doesn't necessarily happen overnight. It can take sometimes months. Like if you decide, like, yeah, I want to do this, and it's off season, well, you're probably not going to get any good game time video for almost 3 to 6 months. And you know what? The more footage you have in your little video library, the better. Ultimately, you want to have a little highlights package. You probably want to have a little bit of a skills session, and then the coach will want a little bit of uninterrupted footage. So that takes a little bit of time, and that's going to be the key to getting some interest.
Who goes through the videos to say, you're sending a good shot? What coaches do you do it, or do you have someone volleyball page to pick that?
Well, our service relies on you guys providing us the video. We might have a look at it and say we're maybe not too happy with the quality, or maybe you need to improve this, in which case maybe you need to go and put another highlights package together. So we'll give you some feedback, but ultimately that'll be your responsibility.
We have a recruitment guide that there's 2 pages on how to set up your video and what coaches. We had a couple of coaches that came out to Australia over the Christmas period, and we sat them down and asked them, what do you want to see on your videos, and we went through about 20 different things, and we worked out what was the most important, and we got 2 pages on tips with the exact stuff that they want to see. This is how to structure it. So yeah, it's all there to be seen. But yeah, it's a tough one. Like, I'd love to be able to do the videos, but it's more effort than what it is. But just as far as
who knows what they're thinking.
Professionally, I would probably say the best thing to do is to stand out.
Well, on that, when I put together my highlights video from all my film, basically, I put it up on YouTube, not as like a public video, but as like a private video, so just people with a link can see it. And I sent it to about 10 or 15 of my volleyball friends and said, what do you think? And then they came back and said, this was good, that was good. You know, at this point, at 6 minutes and 5 seconds, you actually didn't do something good, you should probably take it out. And they just kind of talked to me about the look. So I didn't get it professionally, but just from friends and stuff, they said, this is what looks good and this is what doesn't. Because generally speaking, they'll know, like, it's pretty obvious if it's good volleyball or bad volleyball. And as long as you put, like, the clear presentation stuff, like, put your name and your height, country and stuff. Yeah, but asking your opinion of what the friends think of the video probably helped me a little bit. Because when I was cutting together my video, it took about, I didn't sit down and do it in one bang, but over probably about 3 weeks, kind of doing it like 1 or 2 hours a day, trying to get together a video. So if you're looking at the same kind of clips over and over again for like 3 weeks, you kind of just go a bit blank. So it helps when you get other people who you know to look at it, just give you a little bit of feedback.
And that's what we do. We give a little bit of feedback. We'll identify maybe if there's some weak points in it.
But Luke would be our assistant.
I'm sure Luke would love to. Sure.
All coaches here.
And the thing is, like, the highlights video and the skills video is what's going to get some initial attention. And coaches, when they have a look at it, they'll see it and they'll kind of know where you're at. And then, like, what will almost seal the deal for them is uninterrupted footage. But the thing is, with uninterrupted footage, there's going to be mistakes. You're going to do some silly things or whatever, but they'll get a feel for you, and it's okay to make mistakes. And there could be a point where they say, I've done that too many times. It's not for me, but there's nothing worse than going over there and having coaches have an overinflated opinion of your abilities, and you get over there and you can't deliver, because then they're going to be let down, you're going to be let down, no more than 5 minutes, probably. Yeah, so maybe highlights sort of 3 to 5 minutes, maybe skills video for maybe another 3 minutes or so.
Yeah, any longer than that, I'd probably stop watching because I know my coach when he was talking to me about people he was going to recruit for the next season. He didn't have much time because he was a teacher as well, so he was kind of running around and stuff. And he would say, you know, this guy sent me a video that's 20 minutes long. I'm not going to watch it because I got exams. So just kind of more simple.
It's like any resume when you apply for a job. Like if they see hundreds of these things, they just want to see some key things in front of them. And it's the same with the online resume. How high can you jump? How high can you reach? Give you a couple of key stats as to who you played for, if you played for Australia or whatever. So honestly, you know what? Sometimes I don't even read it. I'll send you an email based on the heading of what you sent them. I said, do you have any information? Yes, I've got heading information. But yeah, so it's sometimes less is more. Initially.
And then yeah, eventually they'll want to see, like you said, uninterrupted game footage. Because they know that anyone can just put together a really good highlights video. Yeah, they'll want to see like a set of just you playing. Yeah,
I don't know if I had any other specific points. I think we gave you guys a handout that sort of has a little bit of information about the different packages which we offer. Feel free to have a look over that. And we put some different packages there because different people in different sports will want different things from their service. So we've just tried to have a little bit of flexibility in there. Yeah.
For the GPA, if you do Year 12 over more than 1 year, do they go on your completed Year 12 certificate, or is it subjects to do with your final year? So that a lot of kids are doing a Year 12 subject in Year 11 or 2, do they count towards their GPA?
Yeah, and whether you do that over 1, 2, 3, 4 years, the calculation of the GPA doesn't change.
Okay, so for all the subjects.
But what I will say is some of the requirements to play NCAA college sport requires you to complete years 9 to 12 in 4 years. So if you are doing Year 12 over 2 years or Year 11 and 12 over 3, then that can be applied.
And the GPA is a raw score for the subject, is it the subject study score, or is it a scaled score which is in your ATAR?
So there's 2 GPA calculations. The NCAA will use a GPA to determine whether you meet the minimum requirements to play college sport, and that will be determined based on your raw scores. The individual college may calculate your GPA and raw score. They may apply a sliding scale, so that can vary. Yeah, so that is more from an admissions-based process. So obviously some colleges will have higher entry requirements, which may apply to your GPA and your SAT scores. Their calculation of the GPA may vary depending on the college. So I think that might do us. That listen to us talk for a while. We'll be hanging around for a little bit if you do have any individual questions. Feel free to come and have a chat. If you do want to get in contact with us, I've got my business cards over there, so if this is something that you're interested in, then feel free to give us a call and we can see if we can help you out. Thank you.